All right, we're back with more NFL coverage just before the NFL draft kicks off on Thursday. And in this particular video, I'll be covering a few developments, including a couple of players who, especially over the last couple of days, got the absolute fucking bag thrown at them. And for good reason, I might add. But before we get into that, there are a couple of other things that ended up taking place, including a few announcements regarding jersey reveals. Yes, it has been happening all throughout the postseason as several teams have modernized or maybe taken it back to a bit of a traditional font or style for their own uniforms to roll out in the upcoming NFL season. And again, a few teams have done this already in the Falcons, the Titans, for example, but there have been at least 3 teams as of late to join into this party themselves. And to start it out, we have the Commanders, who, more than anything else, decided to just change around some of the details on their particular jerseys. Whether it be them, for example, their alternate jersey is all black. They're going to have the 3 stripes down the middle for all of their helmets, whether they be home or away jerseys. And for this one, their logo is going to have a decal of a spearhead through the middle of the W letter that they have in their particular frame or branding here. And I think that's a convenient touch to have. You don't necessarily go back to the controversial mascot nickname. You don't go back to that fully, but having that run straight through the middle does kind of give you the sense of a player wearing this uniform, donning that helmet, and rocking that decal. They are, in fact, in command of something. They're in control, they're taking charge, and they're taking names on the football field. So that's not a bad touch to it. The other jerseys, again, were just part of this overall initiative for them to kind of take it back to the glory days. They already decided to do it for one of their alternates last year. And so they're just carrying that spirit over a little bit heading into the upcoming season, where they will most certainly be tested in regards to that. But a lot of these, again, just very minor. You know, some of the stripes on the outer ends of the sleeves, for example, have gotten a few changes in tweaks. For example, the home one, they just have the yellow, or gold rather, and white sleeve stripes around that particular area of the jersey. Then it's burgundy and gold for away jerseys, and it's gold and burgundy just as well for the Hellraiser alternate that they have as their all-black jersey. So really just taking it back to some of those older Washington teams and trying to harness that particular energy, not just in their play on the field, but in how they look as a roster. So from what I'm seeing, again, it isn't exactly new. More like they're just, refurbishing things a little bit, trying to touch them up and slightly modernize it while paying homage to those older teams from back in the day. And there is nothing wrong with that. I just don't know if we can fully put it into the definition of brand new. But they look clean. To be objectively fair about it, they look clean. I can't really criticize that. Same thing for the Rams, who would also come out with new threads. Really, this just came down to the design of the logo. Apparently, they added a bit of a pointed curve at the end of the horn they're supposed to have on it. They changed up some of the alignments of their pants to accompany their home and away jerseys. And really, outside of that, nothing too crazy. Like, I have this little trailer playing here for this logo, and I mean, not much They had room to do a lot. Like with the Rams, again, fuck the Rams. But with the Rams, like, hell, they have this. You go to their Twitter handle or Instagram page, and they have this logo of an all gold LA, signifying their brand. So you're going to do that for the logo. You're going to do that for the imagery. Why don't they just make a fucking jersey like that one? If you remember, they had an all gold throwback jersey. Then again, was very good, to be honest with you. Let me see if I can find that. Because I remember them wearing this jersey, and again, it was a throwback. This is around like 2018-ish, and yeah, this looked clean. So the fact that they decided to go away from this, why? Why? The opportunity is there for you if you're going to have that in the logo to bring that back. I mean, literally, these are so damn clean. I just don't see how they missed their chance to pull that off. That is just really interesting to me. That's what I'd want to see. They changed some of the fonts in terms of the numbers and names on the jersey as well. Again, probably for better contrast and just a sharper distinction as to, identifying these players and identifying the uniform as a whole. All right, they aren't necessarily bad ideas. It's just damn, like that's all there is room to do so much more damage there. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. And then you have the Ravens getting involved in this as well. And the main changes for them, they kind of sharpen the font of their jerseys as well. They're gonna have the same colors going on for their away and home uniform bases here. But the real change lies in their alternates and in the way that some of these designs are coming about. As I'm seeing here, they've got talon stripe pants to match each and every single color wave of that particular piece of clothing, I should say. They also have the sleeve shields representing the Maryland flag and also the Ravens decals, alternating in terms of variants across all the different colorways as well. The inside collar appears to have different symbolism as well, with the messaging changing color between each jersey, and then also for their primary purple alternate as well, having a different message in there that says Purple Rising, and same thing for the back collar of the jersey. Also, amongst the helmets, especially when it comes to this darkness helmet. Damn, they were not trying to fuck around. This one has black talon stripes on it, and they've got a Ravens logo with the same kind of red eyes that you'll see if you'd gone to M&T Bank Stadium, and you know how in pregame they set the stage and set the scene for gameplay by having those light up as different players are running out of the tunnel and smoke is rising from that particular area. Yeah, they have that shit. That's a very good touch for a Ravens helmet. Same thing for the Purple Rising as well. They have a couple gold stripes running down the middle of that particular one, which will go along with their purple alternate. And then again, they have this all black jersey here accentuated with what appears to be purple and white stripes towards the arm area of the sleeve. And yeah, overall, these actually don't look half bad at all. Same thing. As much as people hate it, there's something about those mustard jerseys that the Ravens had back in 2015 as well that are kind of like, and they weren't all that bad. If you can find a way to touch all of this up, you may as well give yourself a shot at using that jersey again and putting, again, a modern look on it. I don't think people would have much of a problem with that. Like, it's at least worth a shot at that point, in my opinion. I mean, why not? So again, hey, all this goes to show you is that while it helps to have great players inhibiting your roster, at the very same time, you can pull in a good amount of fans as well, just off of the way that you appear on game day as well. And so, hey, some of these teams, they're trying to put themselves in elite company when it comes to the threads. You can't blame them. Now it's on to seeing, hey, who else is going to step up to the plate and try to at least elevate their game when it comes to creating this kind of imagery and these kinds of uniforms for the upcoming season. There's the room for you to go do it. Now you got to try to match these teams and outstyle them, Let the games continue in that sense. Then, before getting into player-related stuff, you have a bit of a wild, and I mean wild, case involving, in a way, a few players in the NFL, though not through their actual presence. It's more about the perception of them being involved in this particular case. Because we, according to multiple sources, have a scammer Yes, you heard me right. A literal scammer impersonating NFL players for not just any kind of money either. According to this original report from Daniel Kaplan of The Guardian on April 15th, quote, a former University of Alabama national champion plans to plead guilty later this month to orchestrating an alleged scheme in which he impersonated NFL players and defrauded lenders out of nearly $20 million. The alleged scam is described in detail by the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, including depictions of the former defensive lineman donning disguises during loan closings. Luther Davis, a member of the Alabama football team that won the 2010 national championship game, along with a partner, C.J. Evans, obtained at least 13 fraudulent loans totaling more than $19,845,000, the criminal information filing alleges. And as they go on to say, a CI document is filed by a U.S. attorney when a defendant agrees to waive the constitutional right to indictment by a grand jury and instead proceed by typically entering a guilty plea. Both Davis and Evans are doing so according to the court docket. End quote. So again, this isn't even remotely chump change. 13 fraudulent loans and almost $20 million for a scam involving the impersonation of NFL players from a former college football star under Nick Saban's tutelage at Alabama. This just sounds so made up. Like this, the first mention I got of this, first whiff of information in regards to this that I was exposed to came from an Instagram post that Adam Schefter had detailing that this occurred. And I'm reading it, I'm trying to stick with it upon the first view of it. And I'm like, okay, what? This doesn't sound real. This sounds so made up. Because you have to understand, out of all the different ways, just think about this for a second. You don't want to be scamming and deceiving people like this. There were so many other things you could have literally done with your time. And you're investing it, if you're Davis and his partner, in trying to fool people and make an absolute bag off of them. And if they were able to get almost $20 million, you could argue in a way that through all of this, they still succeeded. Now, when it comes to the timeline, they say that, quote, the scheme took place during a 17-month period starting around May of 2023 and would go on to end in around October of 2024. And from that standpoint, you understand that Davis is a former college football player himself, right? Playing for such a prestigious program in Alabama for a full 4 years before all this transfer portal stuff started going down. He was there. He was in the presence of some truly great all-time Alabama legends. Of course, even with you being a part of that team, and even with you playing so well to potentially be selected into the pros, there is, again, when you look at the overall flow chart in a way, in the overall structure of just how the concentration of players is set up, only a small percentage ever get to reach high school in the first place. Then an even smaller percentage get to make it to the collegiate level. Even smaller percentage of those people make it to the pros. And an even smaller percentage of those people that are in the NFL are elite Hall of Fame caliber talent, or last enough for more than at least 4 years in a career, tops. Most other people are expected to just wither away and involve themselves, enrich themselves into other avenues of their lives in their career paths. That is typically how this does end up going, which again is not always the messaging you're going to get. That's not how it'll be framed, but it is the truth. And so, from that sense, even though this sounds wild as shit, you do have to at least think for just a second about what exactly Davis might have had to be dealing with for this to come about. They haven't had any other details in regards to who he is or what he has been involved with over the past decade and a half plus before this, other than, again, being a former college football player. So there are a number of different things he could have confronted in his life up to this point that have led to those actions committed allegedly between May of 2023 and October of 2024. We have no way of knowing that until that information is relayed. All we know now is that this again took place and that there was a purpose for it being done. Only he can attest to his own motive for this right now. Like, of course, again, money, it's going to be obvious, right? There could be something more personal there. And until that is expressed in real time, that's not something I can really comment on or try to speak about. But it would be interesting to get some clarity in that respect. In terms of the decision in regards to where to hit these particular spots for fraudulent negotiation, as this report states, essentially, this was taking place to target multiple banks in the region of Atlanta. Multiple banks, not just one, but multiple across the vast city. And I mean, hey, with everything that they do say about Atlanta, one can't be particularly surprised if this were all about the money, why they would localize it to those specific areas. It wouldn't be that hard to make out exactly why, considering how they have a growing entertainment capital down there on top of all of the other revenue from other venues that they are bringing in on a consistent basis, and the fact that they have an NBA team, like at least in theory, the money that you have access to, and building off of that, the resources that you potentially have access to are so great that if this was your desire, you'd be remiss to not try to take a little piece of that. That could have been their thinking in this situation. All this money being made down here, you may as well join in on the fun. Fine. Doesn't make us much different. As long as we're getting paid, doesn't matter if this business or our business is completely legitimate. If we can convince them enough that we have something we're willing to truly market to the highest degree, and we have some good product that we're trying to sell, and we'll need a great amount of help with. If we can sell them that pitch, the rest is easy. So, with what everything is saying here, so they would have a particular agent. According to the Guardian, it's called D Chasers LLC. And it ended up serving as that particular branch for other companies that were, again, apparently in the context of this overall ruse, associated with professional football players. And the names that were implicated in this, again, just by the nature of being impersonated, are actually very wild when you do think about it. Because they were not just going for the names here. They were going for the entire likeness. They were getting the names. They were also getting financial statements fabricated. They were making fake emails. They were getting fake IDs. Every motherfucking thing just to keep up the lie. Now, of course, and again, I'm going to go off, I'm going to name these players, okay? It's not to take anything away from them, because when you have your name being associated with something like that, it does have a high risk of putting you in a negative light, a high risk. And it's clear that Davis and Evans, if all this is true, it's very clear at a point, if this has gone on for 17 months or so, that you had no care about them and these other players and agents being caught up in something like this. Because you were just more focused on gaining all of these assets yourself. And it's like, while that can be the case, this does come with real consequences. Even if it would be found out that as the progress continued for this, these players were not involved in any of the subsequent meetings, they didn't attend any of these things, they were not aware that this was happening. And that's still pretty bad. But these three players include David Njoku, Xavier McKinney, and Michael Penix Jr. Yeah, you heard me right. David Njoku, Xavier McKinney, and Michael Penix Jr. Just think about that for a second. Because again, thankfully, as all this was going on, and as we're clearly finding out now, they weren't actually wrapped up in anything like this. But again, it would have been hard for people to associate them with this. And again, that all plays a factor into why this apparently worked. Yeah, if this guy is an NFL player, oh yeah, he's most certainly legit. And he's looking for an opportunity to do business now. Oh, we've got to sign off on that. Because all the credibility rests in that at that point. You're of high status. We already trust you right then and right there. We have to go through the proper paperwork, but it's just a formality. And I literally mean all of it. Not much else matters. Sure, some of this stuff looks suspicious, but we trust you. You're this NFL player. You're that NFL player. You're not a rando off the street. So we'll buy into this. We'll give you this money. We'll give you this loan to go start it up. Good luck. We have the utmost faith that your name alone will help deliver this business into the good graces of all who come across it. Essentially, at that point. And so these companies just bought away over and over and over again. And all of them ended up being fraudulent by the time of this reporting. All of them. You have to go back to the timeline as well. And in terms of the players being targeted in this, you're not going to go for the best and most popular players in the NFL at the time. You can rest assured that those players will be surrounded by top-tier talent on their own camps to ensure that nothing like that happens to them or with their name. You can guarantee that. There was an understanding of that in their mind somewhere, as crazy as this sounds. You are not going to have success trying to convince one of these other places that you're fucking Patrick Mahomes in his prime. They're not buying it. And Mahomes will most certainly not allow that to slide. So you have to go for a lower tier of player here to target. Knowing that while their camps may be okay, it's not like they're fully household names. All they would know at that point is that you are an NFL player. And it's not like a lot of the people in these companies even watch the sport as it is. You are just going off the word of mouth, and you are trusting that they are telling you the truth. Fair enough. And again, it worked for them. They played the system. They did. If you can get fucking $20 million out of it. The thing is, like, out of all the players especially, and again, no disrespect, Michael Penix Jr., bro. Michael Penix Jr. Really? Of all people. Like, are we serious? You had so many different options, and you choose to play a scam on Michael Penix Jr. Be for real. Be for real, man. Like, he might not be a household name, but of course, the man just got drafted. And this is Atlanta-based. And you're telling me that they were still able to successfully get a loan with him being impersonated, knowing that around this time he was just a first-round pick for this damn Falcons team. Literally just a few months before. I digress. And again, the lengths to which they did this shit just make it even more ridiculous. Like, as this AP article states, quote, federal prosecutors say Davis would go on to don disguises, a wig once and a do-rag style head covering another time, again in March and July, to impersonate two other NFL players on video calls and bilk millions more in loans. The complaint doesn't have to say this, as the AP goes on to continue quoting here. Everybody knows who watches the NFL intently that Michael Penix Jr. wears the do-rag all the time. And you're telling me that dead ass, this man, Luther Davis, was walking into full meetings with this on, posing as Michael Penix Jr. And people still believed him. How fucking stupid can you be? How stupid can you be, bro? It's crazy. And then it's like, damn, somebody else was saying, because you can comment on these articles on the AP as well. I was looking at this briefly, and somebody was talking about, hey, quote from one of these. I feel like this all started with a couple of friends having a conversation around the subject. White people think all black guys look the same. Oh, really? Then prove it. We don't all look alike, bro. we don't all look alike. There is just like, you can't sit here and tell me you're in Georgia right now, you're in Atlanta right now, or at the time that this was going on, seeing a person wearing a fucking do-rag who's black, and you automatically think, oh, that's Michael Penix Jr. Oh, a fucking wig with like locks and extensions on it. Oh, that's David Njoku or Xavier McKinney. Bruh, how the fuck would you know that? Like, literally, like, come on. I'm like, bro, this is just, it makes no sense. Absolutely none whatsoever. So apparently there is a hearing for this on April 27th. Also, it isn't even the first time that Davis has apparently been involved in something like this. As the USA Today article states, quote, in 2013, Davis reportedly served as an intermediary between 5 college players, including former Alabama All-American DJ Fluker and Mississippi State standout Fletcher Cox, and NFL agents and financial advisors, funneling money totaling $45,500. Davis was reportedly a runner for agents, end quote. Now, again, I don't know how big of a story this was, specifically that in 2013. But he's done this already to benefit agents. So what made people think that anything was going to stop him from trying to do this for his own benefit? Also, what made people believe that? If this is the reference, if this is the background for him, why would people think any different? I find that hard to believe, dude. You just like, I tell you, bro. I tell you, man. So that right there, like, that has to do it for me in this one, man. I talked about it enough, but boy, like, if I spend any more time with this, I'm just gonna like lose my mind. Because again, this just caught me off guard so badly when I first heard this. And it's still, to this point, it's just like, okay, what in the absolute hell, man? What is going on, bro? Like, come on, dude. All right, so we'll move on from that, and we'll actually get into some player development now. As the Cardinals would start things out by exercising Paris Johnson Jr.'s fifth-year option. Of course, Paris Johnson Jr., the Ohio State man himself, was drafted by Arizona. And to his credit, although it had been shaky in the first couple of years, considering where the Cardinals have been at, he has honestly been a sound piece of that offensive line for a while. Drafted top 10 in 2023 at 6 overall, and he's been steady, truly. Now, the main thing for him, and especially with what I'm seeing here, the amount of games he's played in each and every single season have dropped incrementally. And when you are projecting that kind of value in a player, you want to ensure that they are going to be as healthy as possible for the foreseeable future. It's not a good sign to see that, again, he's down from 17 games in 2023 to 14 in 2024, and then only played in 12 in 2025. That's not a trend that you want to have on the docket in reference here. When he has played, though, again, he's consistent. He is as consistent as it gets. He's played in more than 97% of the snaps on offense in each and every single season up to this point, when he has played a game. He's truly elite at what he does. Although, compared to other linemen, he may not always get the same kind of credit. And so, if you're looking at this from the Cardinals' perspective, with him exclusively playing left tackle in 2024, if you want him to be your blindside blocker, depending on which quarterback is set to come in, whether it be a placeholder quarterback for this season or you happen to take one in the draft, you want to make sure that that quarterback is in the best position possible to succeed. And one of the ways to do that is to secure a stout offensive line. Now, of course, it's going to take a little more, especially considering some of their interior offensive linemen. But Paris Johnson Jr. to round everything else out and be the anchor of that line, that ain't a bad decision at all. Now, of course, they could pay Paris Johnson Jr. at this point, or they can allow him to prove it for at least another year. And I think at this point, if you're Arizona, you may as well pay him now. You may as well. Now, there wouldn't be the kind of rush to do it in the way that you would for other skill position players, maybe. At the same time, this offseason has been so tremendously quiet for Arizona. And while you do owe some money, you still have enough free to this point that you could afford to invest in Johnson Jr. Now, maybe you're not going to pay him as a top 5 blindside blocker in the league, but at the very least, he deserves something respectable. At the very least. Because again, that kind of consistency is the best ability, even for an offensive lineman, at that spot, where so much is asked of them, simply to guard their assignment and protect the man in the pocket. And they take an absolute physical toll each and every single game. It's guaranteed. And Johnson Jr., for the most part, is still fighting his way through all of that to be mostly durable. Like, I think at this point, he's shown you enough. And with you not being as active in free agency, you may as well try to retain some of the core talent that you are willing to invest in. I'm sure that Johnson Jr. is one of those guys. So there is no better time for you to make that decision than now, in all honesty. Moving on to the Texans. And I mean, are you surprised that they decided, per Adam Schefter, to pay Will Anderson Jr. a 3-year, $150 million contract extension? $50 million on the dot in terms of average salary, making it the largest non-quarterback deal in NFL history. I mean, it was inevitable. Literally, the second you heard that Will Anderson Jr. was getting his 5th-year option exercised, you knew that something like this was more than likely to happen. And the Texans did it. They fired their shot, and they decided to stick with their second pick in 2023 for the long haul. I've already said everything that needs to be said about Will Anderson Jr. This deal is massive. The guarantee money matters, and it's still just crazy to look at all these days later. It does put the Texans in an interesting spot, especially if they do decide to pay C.J. Stroud as well. Even though I'm not sure that he'd command the same amount of average money per year, that might be pushing it from their standpoint. But I guess all that remains to be seen. Still, Will Anderson Jr., as I said then, is very deserving of a deal. And he smashed this salary 100%. So again, now it's like, okay, how much are they willing to give Stroud in this entire equation? Because if you're going to command that kind of money to an edge rusher, and again, Danielle Hunter also has at least $30 million guaranteed on his deal, it's a lot. It's worth it, though. But that is a real question. How exactly do they manage paying some of their other guys on the roster now? Because with that high amount of capital going to just a couple players, it does limit you in a way in terms of your ability to truly grow this roster and fill it out with elite talent at every position. That's a real question. As I said, though, with the kind of production that they've had as a defense, with what they were able to do last year as an overall unit, especially with some of their guys on that core already being locked up in Derek Stingley Jr., in Jalen Petre, they've got some of their core guys locked down already. So they can afford to do this deal. It is more than worth it when you have just an absolute unit out there at this position that is on his own historical territory here. Just a truly great player, and he's just getting started. So they think that, hey, this will, one, be a good deal in time. Just thinking about how non-quarterbacks could log even more money than this in the future, depending on how good they play, this could look like a good deal. There is a potential for overpay, but again, he's shown you who he can be as a player. And if you truly believe in that being sustainable, with you holding all the cards and having him on your team as a player, you're going to commit to him. The Texans, you have to credit them for not shying away from it. Even though, again, they're going to see a price like that, and they're going to slowly back themselves out of the deal and just completely dismiss and detach themselves in a way from the team and other relationships in that front office. That's how drastic some of these negotiations can get. Instead, Houston fully bought into it. So they mean business. And man, Will Anderson Jr. in that NFC South is going to be terrorizing offensive lines for years. And I mean years to come. As for the Falcons, they pulled off a pretty weird trade here as they send Ruke Orhorhoro to the Jaguars in exchange for Maason Smith. And you're like, huh? It's crazy when you think about it. Both of these players were drafted in 2024, both of them. And honestly, while Orhorhoro has been a little more productive, the margins are just not very great between these two. It's like, I don't get the thought process behind this one. Maybe they believe, the Jags, that Orhorhoro in a new setting can start to put together some great things on tape and really fortify a defensive unit. Because to his credit, after not playing all that much and not really being much of a starter in his rookie season, which is customary, he did start 8 games in 2025 and had a pass deflection with 3.5 sacks and 25 tackles with 6 quarterback hits. And those are just in 8 starts. He played all 17 games. So maybe a change of scenery for Orhorhoro can put him amongst some of the better defensive tackles out there. Maybe the Falcons weren't utilizing him in the way that he wanted to be and really setting him up in proper alignment to make more plays in the backfield as a potential run stopper. The Jags are such a good defense to where, hey, you have that pressure coming from both sides. If you can win your matchups as an interior lineman, interior defensive lineman, that is, we are just going to be damn near unstoppable as a team. The inverse happened for Maason Smith in a way. Now, granted, he hasn't played in each and every single possible game, and he's only started in 7 games up to this point. In fact, he's seen his amount of starts diminish from 5 in his rookie season to just 2 last year, as other players started to emerge and take his role from this involvement in the Jaguars' defense. He hasn't had the jump. He's taken a step back. He had 3 sacks in 2024 and then did not log a single one last year, along with having a pass deflection and just 15 tackles. So again, while this is truly marginal, one could say that the Jaguars, by getting a guy who could be on the rise in the right system, you could probably argue that they won this. I mean, again, probably not by much until Orhorhoro goes out and does it. But there is truly an opportunity for him to go out there and get it done if he hasn't even had a full season's worth of starting as a defensive tackle in this league. That means there's even more to be uncovered in his game. And just as much as that could lead to potential exposure, it could also lead to some pretty good things for him in this Jags team moving forward. The Falcons, I guess they believe that they have their guys, but I just don't really see that deal working out for them, at least on their end. It's just very weird to look at that and suggest that this can be done for them right now. All right, moving on to the Titans, who picked up Peter Skoronski's 5th-year option. Honestly, with Skoronski, his story is a little bit different than that of Paris Johnson Jr. Because I'm not going to lie, Northwestern, as a football school, does not have much to look forward to. That is the honest truth. However, he and Johnson Jr. were drafted in the same draft. You should have seen the amount of coverage that they had on Skoronski's profile around this time. Like, they were regarding this man as a generational, yes, buzzword of absolute doom, generational talent at the offensive line position. That's what they were labeling this guy right here. And while he has been a part of some really bad, I mean, that's an understatement, Titans teams, there is still a bit of gray area when it comes to him. He just isn't fully defined as a player right now. Now, again, with what I'm seeing here, it's not going to tell the full story. He's been relatively clean, relatively durable, and that does help. But they've also had to move the man around immediately. Like, he was viewed as a tackle, and then they instantly had to switch him over to the guard position because of a number of different reasons around that time. So that's already kind of like, can he really be trusted as a prospect? Then to this point, again, he has been at the least very solid. And I guess to keep that throughout the entire time isn't really the worst option in the world for a Titans team that is looking to rebuild all over the place. I don't know if the word generational should be screamed out for him, but he has done enough to this point to retain a spot on this team. The entire team is young, however. And if you do choose to pay him an inordinate amount of money, like, you are just going to leave yourself weak elsewhere without really much potential for a move to boost that position. I would not be able to say whether or not Skoronski gets a deal this soon, but at the same time, anything is possible, and so it'd be their call. It'd be very interesting to see if he does. I mean, again, he's been a consistent player. He's been out there through all of the trials and tribulations with this team. So you feel in a way that you're indebted to him, and he is deserving of some kind of money. But what exactly do they view his market, especially at the left guard position? And especially as he still tries to fund his footing on, again, an overall line that is youthful and still figuring out all of the different elements that come with playing the game at a professional level. All those guys are still figuring that out. It's not just Skoronski. But do you punish him as a result of that? Or do you see enough in him at this point to go out and give him a deal now? The answer lies somewhere in the middle, most likely. Again, they're going to have to figure that out. Absolutely. Then we get to the big move a couple days back, where the Giants sent Dexter Lawrence II to the Bengals in exchange for the 10th overall pick. And the Bengals subsequently signed him to a 1-year, $28 million contract extension. Now, that in and of itself is a bit of a follow-up. Previously, Schefter himself sent out a report saying that, hey, the Giants and Dexter Lawrence II essentially reached an impasse through their negotiation process. They were trying to come to a reasonable asking price, at least the Giants and Joe Shane, Donna Ponte, all the guys in the front office. Dexter Lawrence II was still looking for a much larger sum of money that the Giants are not willing to budge on. And in all of that, the talks eventually fell through with them not being able to agree on a, again, mutual asking price. So we are here now, multiple days later, after the trade, coming up on the NFL draft, where the Giants now hold the 10th overall pick. I will say, my initial thinking when it came to this report was essentially what I said when it came about that this was reality for New York, that they were more than likely going to have to trade Dexter Lawrence II. Now, with everything that's come out and all the different stuff I've been hearing about it, they're willing to accept it. But they are left with absolutely no defensive tackle at that position now. New York's best asset at that spot is Roy Robertson Harris, as of the recording of this video. Roy Robertson Harris, just again for reference, is if I hadn't said it clearly the first time, Roy Robertson Harris is useless at that position as a nose tackle. The 11 games he played in Seattle in 2024 after literally being sent away and cut from Jacksonville was just a single pass deflection, no sacks, 13 tackles, and a single tackle for loss in 11 games. That was what he contributed in more than nearly a half season of work with this Seahawks team. Now, he somehow managed to boost his numbers back up in New York, somehow. And again, while that stat line in 2025 isn't even bad, it's serviceable at most. That is just it. You want serviceable at the number one spot, at the prime nose tackle position on that team, compared to a man in Dexter Lawrence who had been a wrecking ball for you for a good number of years in a row. Consistently holding down that middle spot and jamming up runners that would so much conceive about getting into the lane and trying to make Dexter Lawrence II miss. It was as good as a tackle every time. That kind of security is something that you want in a true nose tackle. And it's something that every team will look for in those who deploy nose tackle schemes. Now, they have completely lost that with sending away Dexter Lawrence II. To their credit, though, they'll settle for it. When you see that is what Dexter Lawrence II eventually signed for, maybe you did just have to come to the conclusion that you were not going to be able to spend all of that money on him. You just weren't going to be able to. You know, they've lost a lot of free agents up to this point. And so you do have some money rolling around. But the priority has been on a few other positions, especially to attempt to keep this ship rolling with Jackson Dart's development and momentum as a player. That has been the prime focus for them for most of this offseason. So to commit that large sum of money to a defensive tackle, who again is as good as Dexter Lawrence II is, it genuinely is not worth it in their eyes. It's not a premium position compared to that of others that they're going to be looking for throughout this time. And while Dexter Lawrence II has been a valuable player for them, not at that price. Not at that. They just did not have the sum of money to compete. And so they conceded and got the best possible return imaginable. As I've been hearing, watching through the videos on it and also through the reports, apparently the Giants were expected to get a far less valuable pick than this. And they managed to come away with the top 10 pick, giving themselves the number 5 and number 10 selections heading into the first round on Thursday. And I mean, hell, if you're getting a much higher expected return on an asset, that is a pretty good way to at least come out with this deal content with your decision. Because if you lose Dexter Lawrence II for absolutely nothing, we could be having a completely different conversation right now. And while, time will tell what they end up doing with that number 10 pick, they now give themselves extra shots at the dartboard heading into a pretty interesting first round of this draft, especially. And that could end up making a form of difference for them. Frankly, that's all you can ask for in the Giants' position as they do try to take the next step forward and potentially being playoff contenders in the NFC. because the only way to go from rock bottom is up. And they've got to keep making those jumps year after year after year. Now is the time to start that. Paying Dexter Lawrence II that money would just be like patching a Band-Aid onto the problem. He has been a player, as they'd also been referencing through multiple advanced stats and things like that, that has uplifted this Giants defense in so many ways. And still, he is only one person on this team. He is only capable of so much at that spot. And there are just too many other glaring holes to fill up, to focus on right now. With that, he just kind of fell out of the equation. It is very interesting to see what they're going to do with this 10th overall pick, though. You know, you get the feeling that in some cases they could trade up that package and, you know, get a couple of picks in return to get highly touted prospects. Some people will argue that they could go after Jeremiah Love. Others will say that Downs and Carnell Tate duo with those draft picks could be the move for this Giants team. And while we will find out the answer in a few short days from now, along with all these theories beforehand, they at least can say that, again, compared to just having one, they double their assets and get twice the opportunity, twice the odds at landing a pretty good player for them moving forward. To start adding pieces to this newly fostered identity. Not bad at all. And it is just as understandable for the Bengals in a way. Although, again, considering you paid this amount of money to Dexter Lawrence II and still tried to use this same tactic to lowball Trey Hendrickson. That's why his ass is gone to Baltimore right now. You had $28 million for Dexter Lawrence II like that, and you couldn't throw a few more million Trey Hendrickson's way to keep him there. Really? Considering that Trey Hendrickson had been that consistent for you, even with injury and age concerns, had been that consistent for you since he's been there, and was even a sack leader in the same year that Joe Burrow was the passing yards leader, and in the same year that Jamar Chase was the receiving yards leader, and you still did not make the playoffs. Hendrickson, in a similar way to Lawrence II, has shown you that consistency as a player, and you still were not willing to do everything in your power, especially if you're the Bengals here, to keep him. Again, they'll weaponize Dexter Lawrence II's 2025 season. And it is not a premium position by any sense of the word. But in some people's mind, off that alone, as good as Dexter Lawrence II is, you have Trey Hendrickson lapping him in output on the field. And just because of him being on the wrong side of 30 and Dexter Lawrence being 28 himself, that's enough difference to pick one over the other. Yeah, okay. That makes total sense. And man, you think about that, and then you consider some of the other moves that have just been hat scratchers for this Bengals team across free agency as well. Losing Joseph Asai, but you're getting back Boye Mafe, but you're signing Brian Cook. Not necessarily big names, but just trying to fill out a roster with as much as you can use. And they already signed Jonathan Allen as well. So you're doubling up on older defensive tackles also, who again, when they're healthy, both of them are very elite at stopping the run. And if they are healthy at the same time, good luck trying to call your inside zone plays. Good luck with that. They will stuff that shit to oblivion. The both of them, Allen and Lawrence II. And that alone is a very convincing aspect and a plus of having Lawrence II there now. All of that is going to really hang on a lot of contingencies. Are you truly going to get the most out of those other players? And are you going to have Allen healthy enough to play? If so, and you factor Dexter Lawrence II into that equation, oh boy. Yeah. Because while Dexter Lawrence II is only one person, it has been years since the Bengals have truly had themselves a solid defensive tackle, let alone a solid defense, and a good one at that. And if you're seeing that kind of impact from Lawrence II, if that can be replicated for this Bengals team, oh, they'll be far more formidable than they once were. Because that kind of pressure from that position, directly up the middle, in the face of a quarterback, can benefit even the weakest of cornerback rooms. It's a mutual relationship there. And you get to have those guys play off of that front seven with Dexter Lawrence II in that entire mix. That could be scary if they do the proper work in the offseason to improve on their skills. That is exactly what it's going to take. If they don't get that, you not only, again, get Dexter Lawrence II while sending away a top pick in the draft, but damn. Like, I'm thinking for the Bengals here, although you can say they have a great player in their midst and this could improve their team, my thing is, bro, you're telling me for the 10th overall pick, you don't find a way to make New York give you anything else or anyone else on that team. With the existing core of players, maybe there isn't much that you would want to add and poach from them. But you don't come away with anything else, no pick, no nothing. It is apparently the first time since like the 1980s the Bengals had involved themselves in a trade like this, where this was just a straight up player for a pick. And it is one of the few times it's happened since like 1960, around that time, per Adam Schefter as well, via a couple of posts that accompanied this. So a trade of this kind rarely happens. And if you understand that that's a trend, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. Why would you, in that situation, unless you are guaranteeing that Dexter Lawrence II can come in there, reverse course after having a down year, and light up the stat sheet, and just completely reinvigorate this entire defense by himself, unless you're expecting that kind of impact, you better have yourself another player involved in this at the very least to try to make this deal work. And again, you get nothing accompanying this. It's just the number 10 pick for the Dexter Lawrence II swap, and bam, that's it. Really? That's wild to me, still, to this point. But again, both teams are content with where they're at now. It is just a matter of continuing to go through all of the offseason procedures and then seeing how things come to form once September rolls around and we get into regular season action. But you're hopeful if you're a Bengals fan. And again, I won't get into that specific thing much here, but was watching Fulmwell Raps' video on it, him being a Bengals fan. He put it as best as anyone could, being as close to the team as possible and as involved with support of the team as possible compared to someone in my position. To this point, the Bengals have just consistently been hanging around doing whatever and underperforming on a season-to-season basis. And so, hey, if it is going to take a swing for the fences to truly put this team back on Super Bowl contention, so be it. Even if you want to have something else added into it, you get a player of that caliber that you have enough faith in as an organization to turn your team around, you best go for it. And you don't think twice about it. They could regret it, but this can also be a massive payoff for them. So again, number of ways to look at that, but it was truly one of the more interesting things that could have happened just before the draft got underway. And yes, in regards to this next development, there is absolutely fucking fire. Now again, in regards to that reporting surrounding A.J. Brown, given the circumstances involving Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel, all of it, other reporters have taken over that line of reporting away from her at this point. Fair enough. There's a real chance that A.J. Brown can go to the Patriots. And it'd have to be after June 1st. Just stay tuned for that. Because not only would it have an effect on, again, how, A.J. Brown would be perceived in all of this and how the Eagles may look for letting him go, especially with all the PR work Howie Roseman is trying to do right now to keep things afloat and keep the media out of everything. Through all of the stuff I've watched myself and have seen in regards to that ordeal with those two. I mean, clearly, that will do a lot. A lot. However positively or negatively each thing goes, there are a lot of implications surrounding that on the end of those two as well, if this is actually something that takes place. 100%. Broderick Jones suffered a setback to a previous neck injury, and he's going to be examined. The Steelers as well are in a situation where they have some young offensive linemen on their team trying to create names for themselves in this league. To have Jones deal with that is incredibly unfortunate. And again, they're going to take this, slowly. They're going to make sure, one, that it's nothing debilitating or potentially career-ending. They're going to try to correct it, and they'll try to get him into that recovery state as quickly as possible. You just hope that he can, in fact, do so in a timely and efficient manner for his own need. And just get back to, being able to have full functionality in that part of his body again after all this comes to pass. From one offensive lineman to another, the 49ers they forked Trent Williams a 2-year, $50 million contract extension. I do think that they would still draft a guy like Caden Proctor late in the first round to serve as a potential replacement for Trent Williams in the long run. And I think especially Caden Proctor, or maybe they could go with any lineman at that position, because they had the 27th overall pick in the draft. They can go with any offensive tackle there. But I'm thinking Proctor, learning from Trent Williams, especially with what looks like to be the next couple of seasons here, could be huge for his development. It was mentioned that initially, there was an offer declined on the part of Trent Williams. It wasn't made a big deal at the time, per the Schefter report, because, again, they were talking this out, and he just comes away with a $25 million per year deal. It's a lot of money for an offensive lineman that essentially is going to be... I mean, we know what it is with Trent Williams. He's one of the older players in the league overall. He will be 38 by the start of the season, and by the time the contract is up, he'll be going on his 40s. But Trent Williams is that good, even still, this late into his NFL career. He's consistently been one of the best offensive linemen, period, in the league over the past few years. And he has been a force with San Francisco. While they may not have a lot of guys with high-end talent across their whole offensive line, it works as a hive because they run through Trent Williams. And, Trent Williams, last time we checked, is pretty fucking elite. So, more often than not, they tend to compete with even the best defenses out there at a high level because of number 71. Specifically, they run their entire system through him, and it works time and time and time again. And when he's not out there, when he's dealing with injury, when he's dealing with even the slightest soreness and having to take time out for himself to rest up and recover, you see the impact that it leaves on the 49ers. And you saw it in the playoffs for the 49ers. He is that much of a difference maker. And while, again, it's an exorbitant amount of money, they can't go without him. They know that. They cannot, as they are constructed, go without him. And that's the kind of leverage that so many players are looking for. Not everyone can pull it off. Trent Williams can. Because he's just that damn talented at the position. He understands the game. He knows what he's doing. He's a 12-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time first-team All-Pro tackle in 3 straight years, seemingly on the back end of his career. So he understands what he's doing. As long as he's out there, that offensive line has got a chance to compete with anybody. And so you'll take this deal, even if it's short term, and carry it all the way out. Same thing for this next player, because you figured once the opportunity came around to pay him, he was more than likely going to get a bag. This is Brandon Aubrey, who would sign a 4-year, $28 million contract extension with $20 million guaranteed as a kicker, making him the richest one in NFL history. And yeah, no shit. This is as close to a no-brainer as it gets out there. And while I can definitely get on Jerry Jones for just being stupid with some of these other contracts out here, you had to re-sign him. You knew that. You just had to. Like, he had a few field goals last year and the year before where they typically be makes, and he ended up missing some routine ones in very inopportune moments. But for the most part, the man is a robot. He is as close to automatic as it gets, literally. And it's his first 3 years, his 88.2% field goal clip is already one of the highest in NFL history all time. He's also made 96.9% of his extra point attempts, while making a Pro Bowl in each of his first 3 years, while making at least an All-Pro team in each of his first 3 years. He's come in from the UFL and even a soccer playing career for a little bit, and has automatically been one of the best kickers in the league, point blank period. There was just no way you could overlook him getting a deal when the time came around to. And I just find that ironic. You have a kicker as talented as Brandon Aubrey, you're going to pay him, and you better pay him if you want to stay on this team. It's the right decision by the Cowboys. And it's rare to say that. So, again, you're doing this for a kicker in Brandon Aubrey. What the hell is the mentality when it comes to doing this for other players that are clearly deserving of it? Why are we stalling it out the whole time instead of having this same energy right here? You go and do that for Brandon Aubrey. There are so many other players that deserve a deal right now. And just because you don't have to continuously go back and forth with Brandon Aubrey, you're going to pay him outright. But then when it comes to other players like George Pickens, oh yeah, franchise tag. I don't like David Mulugeta. I'm just going to avoid talking to him. And I'm not going to work out a deal with you just yet. This contract will look good in a few years. And again, kicker market is probably not going to be anything that crazy, I will say. But it's like you're already getting ahead of this now. If only you had that same mentality with the rest of your roster. But that'll do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.